Alright guys, welcome back dito sa latest episode ng Pilipinas 360 Degrees. I want to talk about something very important. And let's just call it politics of compassion. Yung politics of conviction po, matagal natin pinag-usapan yan. Yung idea na, yes, kailangan mo maging pragmatic. Yes, kailangan mo ng coalition building. Yes, minsan kailangan mo mag-schmooze dito, mag-schmooze dyan. Pero at the end of the day, dapat klaro ka ano yung mga goals mo, objectives mo, at saka mga core principles mo. So tawag natin dyan, conviction politics. But today, I want to talk about something even more important sa aking palagay, no? In the context of what we're seeing nowadays. Kung saan, sa aking palagay, liberalism, ay talagang increasingly, they're being politically marginalized because they're being seen as censorious, snob, snooty, self-righteous, elitist people. So, I want to talk about the politics of compassion as a way to revive progressive politics, as a way to find a potential blueprint for the lack of better term, let's call it pink 2.0, right? And let me start with a few anecdotes. Katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, sorry, we had to cut this kasi biglang dumating yung guest natin with si Attorney Claire Castro, but you're gonna watch that separately in an episode. Yung isang gabi na I caught myself stress eating like crazy. Like nag-rice ako ng rice and rice at night in ways that went against everything I've been preaching for months, if not years. Diba? Para tayong advice ko sa tao, the best way to keep yourself lean and all, especially if you're in the job like mine, which is always nakaupo, nag-drive, whatever, writing, is cut the carbs, right? Have rice once a day. Have one solid, good first meal of the day. I don't know. It could be 10 a.m., 9 a.m., it could be 2 p.m., whatever. And then go lean on your or dinner. And next morning, you're going to wake up, well, maybe not sexy, but at least you're going to wake up feeling fresh and lean. And then at that night, I'd caught myself like stress eating like crazy because it was night after night after night. Grabe yung traffic. It took me hours from going one branch of Shangri-La to another branch of Shangri-La. And I realized, kung ganyan ka-stressful yung buhay mo, right? And in my case, wala akong drivers. I drive myself. And naabutan ko yung traffic day after day after day. Nilagnat pa ako. Diba? Tapos birthday, pre-birthday dinner, a post-birthday dinner. Next thing I know, I was gaining like 1 or 2 kilos. I hope I'm trying to lose that again. But doon ko na-realize talaga, if yung daily life mo is a grind, kung ikaw ay driver, driving through stressful traffic from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., kung ikaw ay isang slice lady na has to go to work at 4 a.m., lalakarin mo ng malayo para mag-jeepney ka dito, jeepney dyan, may mga time pa na may mga iba naglalakad na lang sa EDSA dahil ang mahal ng ang transportasyon, or there's a transport strike, and then uwi ka na, by the time nakauwi ka na is 10, 11 p.m., you know, it's very easy for some of us in positions of privilege to say, oh, pare, ito yung diet mo, ha? Bili ka ng steak. Ito yung best steak. Yeah, but that steak is worth 3,000 pesos and not everyone can afford a steak every day. Or pare, kung may time ka, mag-research ka, mag-subscribe ka sa The Economist or go through 3 hours of lecture of Richard Heydarian sa Harvard Law School about liberty. In that moment, as I was stress eating and realizing I totally like gave up on all of my discipline, I was like saying, ganyan ang feeling, guys, if your daily life is a grind. And that's where nag-sink in talaga yung sense of compassion sa akin. I also felt that in many ways. Like for instance, pagkausap ko yung mga mayayaman na tao, yung mga yayamanin, yung mga titas of Manila, and they give advice and all and that. And minsan yung mga advice nila parang, oh, ito, gawin mo sa Singapore. Ito, gawin mo sa Switzerland. Ito, like, of course, madali sabihin sa inyo kasi, you're billionaires, right? But for a middle-class guy like me, I have to be very methodical about choosing things, right? So, na-realize ko talaga na compassion is very important. Understanding where people are coming from is very, very important. So, things that may work for you, the privilege you may have, the free time you may have to listen to our podcast, to read our articles, to read better people than me or watch better people than me. Marami sa ating mga kabayan don't have that kind of luxury. In fact, tens of millions of Filipinos, and this is not about this administration of that, ito yung naging katotohanan natin year after year, are living either under the poverty line or close to the poverty line. Ang term po namin dyan sa academic literature is precariat. Precariously employed proletariat. Yung mga tao na may trabaho, pero it's like freelancing here, freelancing there, 4 to 5 different jobs, kind of to put together something that gets you through a day. So ito po yung katotohanan for a lot of people. And yesterday, I was also having this very interesting conversation with some friends. Dahil kausap po natin si Attorney Dino De Leon, si Professor Cleve Arguelles. We were talking about, siguro, panahon na, gawa tayo ng sarili natin partido katulad ng Thailand, right? In the case of PITA, yung Move Forward, Future Forward Party, sabi ko, swerte pa nga tayo, hindi katulad ng Thailand, wala tayong crazy absolute king or whatever, Mad King, wala tayong situation ng military juntas, interfere in politics every 3 to 5 years. Um, I said, why not let's make our own version? I mean, the case of Pita is like 42 years old. He became almost the prime minister, if not for being sabotaged by kind of a joint cabal of the Taxins and the military and the monarchy. But tayo, we have, the ceiling is very high for us. The chance is very high for us, but we have to come together. So puro kami mga millennials na matatanda, nag-uusap, puro kami mga mid-late 30s nag-uusap, ganyan. And then I realized may mga Gen Zs doon. So nakausap ko rin mga Gen Zs. Okay, ano bang hinahanap niyo sa mga leadership, sa politika? Sabi niya, actually, basically, hinahanap namin is some sense of certainty or stability. Dahil puro apocalyptic. Climate change, artificial intelligence. In fact, artificial general intelligence, right? Many things soon could be done by, the deep six of this world almost for free. Right? Many jobs are going to be displayed. Many people are going to be in tough jobs. Pati kami na medyo may following and pangalan na. Like, I feel the pressure. I have to build my personal brand. So that, I'm always ahead of the curve and ahead of the AI curve, right? So I noticed even yung mga middle class and well-doing and UP at Lasal graduate na Gen Zs, even they don't have a sense of certainty and this sense of hopelessness, and there's this sense of anxiety and hand-wringing, ano ba mangyayari sa future. So sabi ko, if you want to have effective politics, you have to deal with these realities. Sa isang banda, marami sa ating mga kababayan, guys, are really not in a position to go platform by platform by platform. And I always say, alam mo guys, tama yung sinabi ng isa. Ang dali naman mag-download ng platform eh. Actually, pwede mo ipa-chat GPT yan. Sabi mo, okay, I'm a reformist candidate running for Senate. Chat GPT, tell me what's a good... Actually, madali lang gumawa ng platform. It's always a question of credibility. Etong tao ba to? Meron ba siyang credibilidad? Meron ba siyang expertise? Meron ba siyang relevant experience? Meron ba siyang good intentions? So I think sometimes we also exaggerate the importance of platform. I'll tell you what, we also exaggerate the role of education, for instance. I'm all for education. I'm more than happy to get as many degrees as possible from the top universities in the world. Sure, as long as I can afford it and find the right scholarships, sure. At the same time, sa aking palagay, leadership is not about being a graduate of Oxford or graduate of UP or graduate of Harvard or whatever. I think leadership is more than that. It's about having emotional quotient. It's about having that relatability. It's having that compassion and conviction. And at the same time, yes, budots ka once in a while to be entertaining. Because you know what? Marami sa ating kababayan sa sobrang stress nila sa buhay, just to see someone at that position binubudot sa sarili niya, okay lang sa kanila yan. Actually, it's kind of a relief, di ba? Parang it's a breath of fresh air. So you have to be both someone who can go to the Harvard Law School and make the right debate and at the same time know how to do it buduts. By the way, I'm not talking about myself, but I'm just saying what we need are these kind of dynamic leaders. Emmanuel Macron of France, I think, gave us some initial ideas. I'm not a fan of all of his policies. I'm not a fan of a lot of his things. But I think Emmanuel Macron, when he ran for presidency, he was basically my age when he ran for presidency in France. He was like 37, 38, something like that. And he won. He became the French president in his late 30s. And he brought with himself, En Marche, right? A group of mathematicians, statisticians, academics, and then he completely wiped out the traditional left and socialist party, etc., and dominated the new parliament in France. If you look at the case of Macron, right, he gave us some ideas about how to do politics for the 21st century and how to do it in a fresh and energizing way. And with Macron, again, you can make issues about Macron, whatever, but a part of me actually likes how Macron brings fashion and glamour and, he promotes, basically indirectly promotes startup watch companies like Bell and Rose, for instance. some of the, some sense of style he brings, kind of a Kennedy glamour he brings, the campaign of Choose France that he brought, which explains partly, if not more than partly, why, if you look at the top 10 richest people, you're going to find that there's one or two French people there who have something to do with luxury brands, among others. So I think Macron, who became president in his late 30s of one of the largest and most powerful countries in the world in terms of power and GDP size. And then you had the case of Pita in Thailand, in a country, developing country, Southeast Asian country like ours, that almost became prime minister, just 41, 42 years old, fresh ideas, progressive ideas. All of this tells us that we have to get rid of the old templates. We have to come up with some new ideas. We have to come up with fresh ways of dealing with politics and winning over people. Winning over yung ating mga kaubayan na nagtatrabaho bilang araw, just the whole, every day is a grind. Yung mga kababayan natin sa mga probinsya, I mean, I'm saying, I've been to parts of the Philippines. I come from Baguio City. Baguio City's Human Development Index is practically the same as Chile, Croatia, so almost EU level and almost second, first world level. But I've been also to parts of Mindanao and Philippines whereby the Human Development Index is sub-Saharan Africa level. So, ang maraming lugar sa ating bayan kung saan grabe feudalismo talaga. Warlordism na talaga. In those places, guys, good luck if you don't follow the script. Yayarin ka ng mga warlords. Yayarin ka ng warlords. Yung government institutions dyan are besieged by warlords. Doon ang nangyari mga mambo-jumbos most likely. Yung command vote, papasok yan doon sa mga warlord-dominated provinces. That's a reality. That's a reality. That's why pro-admin candidates will always do better in midterm elections by a factor of 5 to 10%. These are realities. So kaya hindi ka pwede mag-voter education lang in this kind of a pa-cute, let me educate you, elitist, censorious, know-it-all way. And I'm saying this consciously as someone who comes off, I know many people think like, oh, Richard is actually that annoying know-it-all guy. But actually, ginagawa ko yan doon sa mga elitist. Ginagawa ko yan dun sa mga feeling. Na feeling nila, ang galing nila. Yung, wala ka naman. Sa kanila ko ginagawa. If you have seen me interacting with quote-unquote ordinary folks, I'm as chill, relatable as possible. And that's why I'm very proud of I don't want to be tribalistic, but to be honest, one thing I love about my Ilocano culture and roots is, alam mo sa amin mga Ilocano, pag kumakain kami ganun, lahat nandun. Wala akong pake kung ikaw yung cousin ko, ikaw yung driver, ikaw yung kasambahay, we all eat together. There's no feudalism. The way I talk in Ilocano, I call Kapsat, the driver, the same way I'll talk Kapsat, my literal like cousin Kapsat or Kapsat. You know what I'm saying? That egalitarian culture, I was always very proud of that as an Ilocano. So for all my conyotic accent, for all of my conyotic looks, whatever, if actually people bother to check it, I have no problem dealing with quote-unquote ordinary folks because it's rooted in our culture as Ilocanos to be able to deal with people of all social economic classes. And this is also what I love about being Ilocano. We don't get intimidated. Gabriela silang kaming lahat, diba? Like I've talked to the presidents, I have had conversations with the top leaders in the world, among other things. Lahat yan nagawa na natin. And I never got intimidated. I never got I never got intimidated by anyone for that matter, right? So, going back to the issue at hand, guys, ang kailangan talaga natin dito is a politics of conviction, a politics of compassion, a politics that is consciously against elitism, a politics that consciously calls out and shuts down, even if necessary, a kind of toxic elitism that gives a bad name to liberalism and progressivism, yung mga pa-woke na annoying stuff. And yes, I will call out also trapoism. I mean, like, okay, by the way, I'm open. Si Ma'am Rowena Guanzon wants to have an interview. I'm more than happy. But, like, okay, I have no problem you taking picture with people and all, but this is election period. Meron kang isang kandidato na obviously nag-apologize kay Kibuloy in the weirdest way possible. Parang naawa ko kay Gretchen Ho nung in-interview siya. And then you post picture na happy kayo. And then everything I see on your feed is attack, BBM, gano'n. So parang, ano to, Team Kibuloy? Half cheekily I said that. But, there's nothing wrong taking picture with people. I have pictures with Digong. I have pictures with, I don't know, Chinese leaders. I have pictures with the leader of Germany or whatever. It doesn't mean that I'm aligned with them. I get it. But, it's a green time elections. And, I choose timing and circumstances and cadence of my picture with people. But anyway, I'm open to interview Rowena Guanzon because, well, first of all, she's very interesting personality, I think. Sabi niya, trying hard daw ako. Mukhang napikon niya. Tapos parang, trying hard with what? What do I have to try? Right? It's like, hello. Like, duh. You want to look at my CV? Like, you want to... Anyway, because she also represents PWDs, she represents some of, I think, very good advocacies. And in fairness, I think she stood her ground very strongly back in the day. So yeah, I'm open to talk to her. But my point is this. Politics of compassion doesn't mean that you just let anything go and you're okay with anything and forgiveness and forgetfulness. And no. You call out what you have to call out. You nudge people in the right direction. You confront. You bardagulan, something I always do and I love to do bardagulan. But when it comes to vast majority of our people, especially mga ating kababayan whose every day is a grind, yung marami sa ating mga kababayan na stuck in provinces where warlords will threaten their life if they don't follow a script, where 5, 10, 15 pesos, 15,000 pesos, but I heard 15,000 na paling vote buying, is a question of, will I have enough food for the next 2 or 3 days or not? The traditional voters education, blah, 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 is not going to work. That kind of moralistic, self-righteous voter education will never work. What you need is a compassionate form of dialogue and listening tour. For heaven's sake, I want more of our friends to go around and listen actually to the people. Bakit kayo bumoto dito? Kasi sabihin mo, bakit ka bumoto dyan? Bobo ba tayo? Ganon, di ba? I mean, of course, I do that in certain contexts. But, I even explain it. Bakit sa tingin nyo bumoboto ang tao sa mga Robin Hood Padilla mga others? Dahil naging relatable sila. Dahil hindi naging relatable or naging effective yung mga abogado, yung mga matalino, yung mga whatever. Right? Like for instance, pag-usapan natin dami mga abogado dyan sa Senate. Dami mga matatalino dyan. Right? Sa daming hearings na ginawa nila. O yung isa nga, yung dating Ronald Llamas Digong na ngayon biglang malakas na. Okay, 3 yung masters niya sa law, whatever. Like, okay, anong ginawa niya? Right? So, I understand why people are skeptical of people with degrees and all of that. Because the people who had the degrees did not make sure those degrees are useful when they were in positions of power. If worse, ginamit pa yung degrees nila para palusot game and pa-cute games and pusit games and para lang tuloy yung fashion week and microblading and whatever, para lang hindi nila gagawin yung trabaho nila. Right? Just look at all the palusot game that some of our friends are playing on the Sara impeachment. I mean, ilang buwan na hanggang ngayon dinidebate pa rin natin anong ibig sabihin ng forthwith. Seriously? So that's why, I think minsan mga tao sabi, Senador, wala rin palang mangyari. Purong hearing lang yan. Kaya, budots na lang. Budots na lang. Di ba? So you have to also understand where people are coming from. It comes from a deep well of dissatisfaction and also it comes from a position na whereby hindi nila nakita ano bang silba talaga itong mga senador, including mga supposedly matalinong senador, abogado, whatever. In fact, the one senator I know who is actually very effective and making sure hindi lang siya pakit ng hearings, actually something happens to be someone who is not a lawyer. I'm talking about Riza Ontiveros. Riza Ontiveros is probably the only senator I know in recent memory na hearing siya ng hearing and in fact something happens. Alice Go, na-expose. Guo Haoping, na-expose. Potential agent of Ministry of Security Service of China. Boom. Kiboloy, expose, warrant of arrest. Boom. Nagawa niya. So actually, you need more Riza Ontiveros types. Matapang, palaban, willing to risk it. Charismatic, relatable, progressive. So, honestly, I think the way of the future is not only Riza Ontiveros, but millennial version of Riza Ontiveros, Gen Z versions of Riza Ontiveros. Because if there's one thing you notice with Riza Ontiveros, mukha siyang mestiza, Ateneo graduate, matalina among others, but she never comes off as intimidating, let me educate you, elitist and all. At yun ang pinaka-na-appreciate ko kay Riza Ontiveros. But for me, Riza Ontiveros is not supposed to be the end-all, be-all of this equation. Para sa akin, yung success of Riza Ontiveros, naman tayo, mga dilawan na ito kami, disinformation, yeah, of course there's disinformation, Dayan, yeah, but what? But Riza Ontiveros won pa rin. Okay, Riza Ontiveros still won. So maybe, instead of just yapping about Learn from what Rizal Tiveros. Anong ginawa ni Rizal Tiveros to be successful in 2016 and 2022? In the two tough races kung saan nanalo yung team Kadiliman, Kasamaan, whatever you want to call them. Right? Learn from her case study. And then try to replicate her case study. And I'll tell you what, Rizal Tiveros brings together two elements. Politics of conviction, politics of compassion. And at the same time, matalino, pragmatic din. She can work with Rafi Tulfo, she can work with Coco Pimentel, she can work with Jesus Codero on different issues to get things done. She can work with Sherwin Gatchalian on the Pogo issue. In fact, si Sherwin Gatchalian was very helpful in dun sa Alice Co expose because of his master of the details of what's happening within the Filipino-Chinese community, among other things. So kudos to Sherwin, at least on the Alice Go issue, among others. Do you get what I'm saying? So going back, and I want to end on this note. So nung isang araw, nung nag-uusap tayo ng mga kaibigan natin, sabi ko, bakit pa tayo hindi nagkakaroon ng katulad ng ibang bansa like France, na Macron's en marche, ng Move Forward, Future Forward Party in Thailand. So I'm not talking about, Denmark or Norway, yung mga first world country na super. I'm talking about like messed up countries like France, and their politics is messed up. I'm talking about messed up, situation like what we have in Thailand. Mukhang may nagdi-disagree sa akin, nagbubusina. Okay lang yan. Okay lang yan. Mamaya, awayin natin, babardagulan natin. Ang point ko is, tingnan mo, sino lang ba yung may chance na maging senador na millennial? Si thank you, thank you. Andyan na nga yung kapatid na, andyan yung nanay niya, dating tatay niya nandun. We need more millennials, we need more Gen Zs in positions of power and influence. And speaking of more millennials and Gen Zs in positions of power and influence, we have to figure out what hasn't worked, what doesn't work, and what is right and what we should do and work on that. Right? I think some of us are still running the Obama campaign of 2008. Yes, we can. Wala na, you have to reinvent na eh. And hindi nga nag-work eh. Kamala Harris was supposed to be basically a kind of a replication of Obama for 2022. It didn't work. It didn't work. So, ito rin yung payo ko dun sa ibang kaibigan natin na may resources, at sinasabi na wala na sila ng pag-asa sa Philippines dahil sa ang hina ng opposition. Well, maybe you're not investing in the right candidates. Maybe you're not talking to the right people. Maybe you want to reach out to other people, a new generation, and give them voices. So in short, guys, may pag-asa ang Pilipinas. In short, guys, marami tayong pwede ma-achieve. And in short, guys, ang dami pang mga galing na hindi pa rin or hindi pa pumasok sa politika, but they could be there down the road. But certain elements have to come together. But the first thing we have to get right is the mentality, the right state of mind, conviction, compassion, and yes, a degree of pragmatism to be able to work with different people. Thank you very much, guys, again for listening to this latest reflection episode of Pilipinas 360 Degrees. Abangan nyo rin, of course, yung interview natin with Attorney Claire Castro kung saan dami natin mga bardagulan na ginawa. Of course, para naman mabash na naman tayo ulit ng mga kaibigan natin na DDS. Salamat. Thank you very much. And talk to you soon. Salamat po. Thank you.